This is a deeper listen from KEXP, the show we talk with musicians about the thoughts and experiences that shape their music. I'm Emily Fox. And today we're talking with
Trevor Powers. I live in Idaho. My music project is called Youth Lagoon, and I have a new album called Rarely Do I Dream that just came out.
Youth Lagoon first broke through on the scene in 2011 with the debut album, The Year of Hibernation. Youth Lagoon's music has been described as rural noir. On this latest record, Powers' haunting, almost whispered-like vocals tell vivid, dark tales.
This is a war, park in the car, gun on the door and a mark on his arm. Hire a joy killer, hit on a feeling, he'll die at the wheel if you borrow or steal the...
Yet so much of this album is accompanied by light musical arrangements that sound upbeat. Also scattered throughout the album are recordings of home videos that Powers rediscovered a few years back.
Well, this is a good shot. We got Trevor smiling and Bobby in the picture.
Bobby, come stand by Trevor and smile at the camera.
It was these home videos that was a big inspiration for this latest album, with Powers fusing his past with his today.
Then you can show yourself to your kids when you grow up. You'll probably get a copy of this videotape here.
I caught up with Powers to hear more about him, the record, songwriting, and about a health crisis that gave him new life. I first asked Powers about how he reflected on or looked differently at his childhood and upbringing as he watched these old home videotapes as an adult.
It really just made me appreciate everything that I have. And the way that I approached working with Family Archive was trying to find ways to really steer into it and honor it, but then also use it as a tool to flip it on its head. It wasn't approached from a vantage point of nostalgia. I'm actually incredibly against nostalgia because I view that as a prison. It's a way to be stuck in the past and not be able to access the present moment. But this was more so taking tools from my past and from my family history and applying them to who I am now as a device to learn and to grow and to expand and to evolve.
How would you describe where you came from and your upbringing for people that don't know? I was, reading up on you and, just read a little about, how you grew up in a very Christian household, were homeschooled, for a big chunk of time, and then went to a private Christian high school. And yeah, I'm just curious, for people that aren't super familiar with you, how would you describe your backstory, and especially as it relates to reflecting on your childhood through these home videos?
It was a house very full of love. It was also, with me being homeschooled, our world was so small, but it was so beautifully small. That's a huge reason why my sense of world building and imagination and just places I can go to in my brain, that started being expanded and worked on at such a young age because it felt like a necessity. It was, my whole world was my house and my neighborhood.
So what strikes me about this album is there's quite a few tracks on this record with some dark lyrics or just these snapshots that you're painting, but the instrumentation is upbeat, and then you also hear, these happy clips from your home videos sprinkled throughout the songs. For example, in the song Football, you sing about what seems to be about a mom dying on railway tracks.
She was on the train tracks waiting for the blood to rush.
And about a stripper having sex with a preacher.
She would fuck the preacher if he only paid enough.
And then the song ends with this lighthearted sounding instrumental. And then in the song Gumshoe, you sing about a girl being found underwater with bite marks on her.
Down by the sea line, girl underwater, a detective finds
then again, there's like this more upbeat instrumental in the middle of the song with your family video clips interspersed. And so I'm curious, like, why you chose to still insert your family's home video audio in some of these songs that also kind of have like these dark lyrical undertones.
Hmm. That goes back to I'm always drawn towards surrealism, and specifically very dark surrealism. There's something about where the light meets the dark that I not only get obsessed with, but I feel like that's where so much truth in life and the great mystery lies. And that also goes back to with what I was saying, how imagination was such a huge part of, it's such a huge part of anyone's childhood and upbringing generally, but especially for me being homeschooled and having it be this environment that was very much so controlled. I meditate constantly. So I meditate at least an hour every day. I started about 2.5 years ago. And within meditation, it's interesting because a lot of these themes that are they are very dark themes, and things that have to do with addiction, and yeah, it could be chemical issues, it could be sexual issues, all of these things that also has been such a huge part of, like I look at my family history, for instance, is riddled with addiction. I had lost someone very close to me. He was actually the main reason why I got into writing my own music. He overdosed when I was 13. So having certain things like that happen in my family within the context of there being so much love for each other was such a formative and inseparable experience for how I express myself through my art and how I write. But with meditation, what I was getting at is there's something about being in those arenas, those dark playgrounds, that I now have less fear of going into to source some of that material, because I'm not scared of getting lost there. I'm not scared of not being able to find my way back to the light, because meditation has shown me how to get out of my own way and drop down into these places that could be considered very murky, but there's so much truth and so much to gain from those places, and then I resurface.
Yeah, I mean, you talking about addiction, there was also this line in Seersucker that stood out to me about, this line about, growing up being poor and a father ODing.
Had no money half the time, I couldn't pay. Papa died in 99, I miss him every day.
Is that actually your family story, or is that just kind of like, painting a different picture?
That was written from the perspective of the person that I was talking about that I lost. It
Yes.
wasn't my dad, but it was written from the perspective of my family member. So that there's also a lot of that where it's so important to get out of my own shoes, where there could be something that is emotionally impactful for me in one way, like losing that family member who, like I said, was a huge reason why I started writing music to begin with. But then also that impact of that death on the other family members around me, and specifically his kids, and having it be this analyzation or contextualization of how do I put myself in everyone's shoes so that I can write from every emotional perspective and not just my own.
Okay, Trevor, you're on now. There you go. Stay right here.
Every song that Mama wrote, Pop learned to play. When the old piano broke, the music went away. Colt revolver in his coat, killed Jesse James. Jesus Christ, we're doing alright, we're doing alright.
There's a line that stood out to me in your song Perfect World, and that's a year of space, at snail's pace, I learned to crawl, they salted me, but I was saved by rainfall.
A year of space, at At snail's pace I learned to crawl. They salted me, but I was saved by rainfall.
I was just listening to the song on a walk, and I was like, for some reason, this line is really standing out to me, and I'm curious if you could help break that line down for me.
I love that you picked that line out because that's one of my favorite lines on the whole album. That line in particular was written at a place where I felt I had just felt kind of beaten down by life, and there were so many demons flying around me, if you will, or just trying to find a way to get the devil off my back, and there felt like there was a lot of freedom in that line.
Yeah, what was going on in your life at that time, if you're willing to divulge?
A few years ago, I went through a really severe over-the-counter drug reaction, which I had talked about a lot when my album Heaven is a Junkyard came out, because that album was a direct reflection of some of those issues. I had lost my voice for a long time because of all these digestive issues I was going through. And then that had caused, I'm much better now than I was, but that had caused a domino effect of all kinds of different health issues in my body. There was just a lot of that, still just that slow healing going on in my life. When I had written that line, I think I just had a really bad night.
I know, it was crazy. I was reading about some of that experience you had, and the fact that, yeah, it was like this, like, acid was coming up and like hitting kind of your vocal cords. Yeah, the fact that you couldn't speak for a few months. And I'm curious, like, with that experience of like not being able to speak, I'm curious like how that impacted your relationship with music, because you can't sing, you can maybe write some lyrics and things like that. But how did that experience, impact your relationship with music? Because it was around that time that, you had taken an 8-year hiatus away from Youth Lagoon. You were starting to make some solo records. And then, after this event, you did put out your first Youth Lagoon record in 8 years. And so, I'm just curious how that whole experience just impacted your relationship with music.
It was the perfect example of something that was seemingly the worst thing to ever happen to me, turning into the greatest thing that happened to me. It showed me that the only thing that matters is the present moment and the stillness. It taught me how to be still. It took away. I'm just going to go on about all the positives because it's really what it did was it was such a huge. It was a mini death, but it was a massive mini death because it helped me just realize that I'm not this person that I thought I was this whole time, which is, I'm Trevor and I like these clothes and I listen to this music and I watch these movies and I have these friends. That's not who I am. I'm experiencing Trevor. I'm experiencing the life of Trevor currently, but my spiritual being, the true being, the being that is in that frequency of home at all times, that's not Trevor. It's a completely opposite presence. So that experience, that trauma, that pain showed me that truth, which completely revolutionized my life.
Is that also around the time that you started meditating as well?
It is, yeah, because at the time, I felt like I had two options. I had heard so many benefits of meditation, but nothing in my life up until that point had gotten me to actually surrender to the stillness. A lot of that came down to fear, because back to the personal identity thing. There's so much comfort in these identities that we build for ourselves, but what I didn't realize at the time is in that stillness, in that quiet, the more that you surrender, the more that you give up this identity that you build for yourself, the more you instantly get filled up with everything good and everything true like real inner peace, indescribable inner peace. So that the two options I felt like I had when I was going through the peak of the health crisis was either A, kill myself because that's how dark my life had gotten, or B, learn how to meditate and escape my body in the way of, like letting suffering be a teacher. So I chose option B, thank God, because that was really what led me to complete freedom. That inner peace is what not only what guides my life, but my songwriting completely shifted after that because it no longer became about me having to go find these ideas and actively be the one to dig them up, but rather in the surrender, the ideas started finding me. And it was still work because I had to show up every day and scoop the ideas off the top of the surface, but I wasn't the one having to seek them out. It was in the surrender that they found me.
Amazing. And how do you, I mean, this was like 2 years ago that all of this happened. How are you feeling today?
I feel way better. My healing comes in bounds of about every 6 months or so because the digestive system heals so slowly, but I'm dramatically better than I was. But yeah, with all of that, like that opened up the portal to finding who I really am, the core of that home base, that frequency. And once that frequency was found a couple years ago, my writing process sped up dramatically too because when that portal opened, now I can't shut it. It's not a faucet that I can turn off in the best of ways.
It's amazing. So, reflecting back on this latest album called Rarely Do I Dream by Youth Lagoon, I'm curious if there's a song that you're especially proud of or just really love the backstory of, or the way the lyrics came to you or the story came to you. Anything you want to share?
Gumshoe and Neighborhood Scene were two of the ones that helped. They really helped shape the identity of what I was trying to do with this album. The combination between taking Family Archive and taking surrealism and making folk tales out of them and weirdo gothic imagination and where that meets truth. And so those two songs I think were two of the doorways into that perspective.
Shannon,
Yeah,
how you doing?
fair partly cloudy. I better get up and call Terry.
Okay, well,
Cause we ain't watching no sick baby.
Do I belong in a country house? Every angel and devil out marching on the lawn. Do I tell Tom that I saw his dad at the No Romance Bunny Ranch calculate his mom?
Before we go, I've got one last kicker question for you, and that is, KEXP, we're all about music discovery, and so we would love for you to give us a music recommendation. What is a song that you absolutely love, like a song that you're loving right now or has just been with you for a long time in your life, a song that's not yours, someone else's? What would you recommend for us?
The staple that I always go to, which is I would say it's my favorite song of all time, is the Durutti Column, his song Anthony, which is off the album Sex and Death, which came out in 1994. And there's something about the Durutti Column. It's the project of someone named Vinnie Riley, and Vinnie Riley's he's one of my all-time favorite musicians. But also the way he plays guitar is such an extension of his. You can feel his soul in it, and there's something so beautifully intangible but tangible at the same time. And it talking about that state of being, that importance of stillness. That track Anthony is one I go to continually. Oh, I don't think there's a week that goes by without me listening to that song.
That was my conversation with Trevor Powers of Youth Lagoon. His latest album, Rarely Do I Dream, was released on February 21st.
Bobby, look up in the camera. See, look at that shine. You're instant.
I wanna be a mountain above the Rio Grande. Watch Veracruz on videotape. Revolver in my hand.
And that was a deeper listen. Before you go, please subscribe to this podcast, rate it and review it. Those little things go a long way in helping spread the word about this podcast for free. Also, KEXP is a publicly funded station. We're gearing up for our spring fund drive to help raise the money to do what we do on this station, because the majority of our funding comes from listeners. Help support the work we do here on A Deeper Listen by giving $6 a month at kexp.org/deeper. And thanks for taking a deeper listen.